you're building a brand, a podcast can be very valuable because people, I feel like, consume podcasts easier than they do watching a video or reading a blog. It's just pop in your earbuds if you're on your commute to work, or you can plug them in now to your phone or into your car and listen to it through the radio. That's how I don't listen to traditional radio in my car at all anymore, unless my kids are with me, because I have so many podcasts that I have subscribed to and I want to keep up with. I am constantly listening to different podcasts. So right now, audio is a great way, and they don't have to be long. Some podcasts I listen to are 3 hours long, which is a lot to listen to. Some are as short as 5 to 10 minutes, especially the daily podcasts. They pop something in, they give you a tip, they give you some information, and then they move on. That would be my advice. If you are looking to build a brand and have consistency, and again, with everything you are doing to build that brand, consistency is the key. So, I would start off, I started a podcast just over 5 years ago. A cheap plug here, part of the Jittery Monkey Podcasting Network. My podcast is about wrestling, and that's the thing. Find that niche, find that topic that you can talk about, and be a voice, be an authority on, and keep the consistency going. And that is going to be what leads ultimately to your success. And I don't do my podcast for monetization. Obviously, if you have the time and the ability, you can definitely monetize podcasts. There are people who have become professional podcasters, and it is possible to do. However, if you are just building a brand and looking to kind of get your footing in the marketplace, podcasting is a great way to go. And especially if you go into it with the mentality of, I'm not going to get rich doing this. And especially if you're obviously supplementing what you're already doing, then podcasting is a good way to go. Now, to do a podcast, and really, you can be very basic with it. You don't have to have a bunch of fancy equipment. Obviously, when you put some effort into it and invest in it, you're going to have better audio quality, and you may attract more listeners and a bigger audience. In a pinch, if I'm out in the field of sorts and I have a podcast to record, I just pull out my phone. The Voice Memos app, the audio is really pretty good on it. I go home, I transfer that then to my computer, and I use the software GarageBand. It's an Apple product, but there are other software out there that you can either download or purchase and use on whatever device you may be editing on. Anchor is another great website that you can go to and use the software there. You can set up a hosting site of Podbean. I know several podcasters who use Podbean. You set it up through Podbean, and then you pay a subscription. I believe it's about $100, maybe just over $100, and you pay that annually, and that gives you then a place to upload your podcast to. Then the podcast can go out on an RSS feed and reach then the multiple devices, the multiple platforms that are out there, like I mentioned, whether it's Podbean or Spotify or Apple Podcast. So those are kind of some of the basics. If you just bare bones it and grab your phone and record a podcast, and it is possible to do it that way, by all means. If you want to invest, this is an audio board. I didn't bring all the wires and gizmos and whatnot for it. Now mine is I think that's Xenex Q802 USB. I found it on Amazon, and I bought this. I went for probably almost 3 years, or just over 3 years, without the audio board. And a lot of my other friends who are into podcasting have this board or one very similar to it. So I decided to go ahead and invest in that. And then, of course, once you get the board, you need a microphone. And I have the newer NW800. And again, this is about $25. The board, I believe, I paid just over $80. So the initial investment in equipment, just over $100. You have adapters and all that kind of good stuff. Now, if you have a co-host or other guest, you want another. I do have a second mic. I didn't bring it because it's the same as this one. So just do a little research, do a little homework. to get started. And really, again, I can't overemphasize the power of audio. And so many people listen to podcasts, and that's how they are consuming now. We are all busy. We have hectic lives, kids and work and church and school and whatever else we may be doing. But there are those times when we're exercising, when we're driving to those places, going to bed at night. People are consuming the audio in those ways, whereas to sit and commit to reading a blog or watching an entire video from start to finish can be taxing and time consuming. But that audio, it's a secondary way of consuming while we can multitask. It's hard to focus on a video and get your work done or go for a run or whatever the case may be. So the audio just makes it so much easier to do that. And really, it is something that we have been getting a lot of inquiries about as far as podcasting goes. So if you are looking to build your brand or try something different with your brand, maybe a ground floor experiment for you, explore the possibilities of audio. And if you have any questions, comments about podcasting or concerns, let me know, because it can be an overwhelming experience. And if I don't know the answer myself, I certainly know enough people who have the podcasting experience behind them as well that we can figure something out for you and get you on the right path for sure.